Your coffee-making skills, your favorite book, that awkward memory from high school, your to-do list, your voice, your face in the mirror. All of this is what we usually call the self, a quiet companion that seems to follow you wherever you go. But what exactly is this self? Is it a stable core identity, a bundle of memories, a useful illusion? The relationship between consciousness and the self is both intimate and slippery. We often talk about consciousness as something we have. But that we, the one doing the having, is made of consciousness itself. It's a loop, a self-reflecting spiral, and that spiral has fascinated thinkers for millennia. At first glance, the self feels pretty solid. You have a name, a personality, a history, a body, maybe even a favorite sandwich. But if you examine that sense of me more closely, it begins to wobble. You might find that yourself is more like a character in a story, one that your brain is constantly writing, editing, and sometimes improvising on the fly. Let's start with the neuroscience of selfhood. There isn't a single spot in the brain that houses you. Instead, the self seems to emerge from the interplay of multiple regions. The default mode network processes your inner narrative. The insula registers bodily awareness, what's called interoception. The prefrontal cortex reflects on decision-making and personality. The hippocampus tracks autobiographical memory. Together, these systems generate a cohesive sense of self, but it's a construction, not a constant. And this construction can break down. In certain brain injuries, people may experience depersonalization, where they feel detached from their body or identity. Others may suffer a fugue states, losing all memory of who they are and starting a new identity entirely. These cases show us that the self isn't permanent. It's fragile, dynamic, and heavily influenced by brain function. But it's not just neuroscience pointing in this direction. Many Psalm Eastern philosophies have long taught that the self is an illusion. In Huizhao's Buddhism, the idea of anatta means no self. According to this view, what we call the self is just a temporary aggregation of thoughts, sensations, and habits, arising and dissolving in every moment. Meditators who go deep into their practice often report moments where the self disappears completely. They don't die or go unconscious. Instead, awareness remains, but without a me at the center. This state is described as peaceful, expansive, even liberating. So, is the self just a story your brain tells? Cognitive scientist Anil Seth describes the self as a controlled hallucination, a useful interface created by the brain to manage a complex organism in a complex world. You are not the CEO of your mind. You are the brand, a symbol that organizes thought, emotion, and behavior into something cohesive. And this story evolves. The you of 5 years ago probably believed different things, felt differently, and acted differently. The you of the future will be someone else again, yet you still feel continuous. That's because the brain works hard to maintain a narrative thread, a sense of autobiographical continuity. But even that thread can be disrupted. Experiments show that people can be convinced they made choices they didn't, or remember events that never happened. The self is more malleable than we think, which brings us to a paradox. If the self is a story, who's listening? Is there a deeper observer behind the thoughts? A silent witness? Some traditions call this the true self, the awareness that observes the mind rather than being it. Others say there's no one home at all, just experience flowing through the system. At Infinity Beyond, we embrace this mystery. Because maybe the self doesn't need to be permanent to be powerful. Maybe identity is a dance, not a destination. A shifting mosaic of memories, goals, habits, and dreams. So next time you feel stuck in your identity, too shy, too old, too broken, remember, the self isn't set in stone. It's a fluid pattern, and patterns can change. In our next segment, we'll push even further into the edge of thought, into the theories that suggest consciousness itself creates the universe, not the other way around. Can the observer shape reality? Stay present, stay questioning.